Houston, Texas, June 24th, 2016. That's just yesterday for the white supremacists out there too dumb to read a calendar. I had posted an address to the black nation just a couple of days ago about the real white genocide, and a story that proves my point only too well has just occurred. Christy Sheats, aged 42, was a very outspoken gun advocate in Houston. She and her husband and their two daughters lived in the affluent Houston suburb of Fulshire. Yesterday, at about 5 p.m., police received emergency calls about a barrage of gunshots from the Sheats residence. When the cops got there, they found both of the Sheats daughters lying outside on the ground, dead. Christy Sheats was still holding the pistol that she'd shot them with. Officers told her to drop the gun, but she wouldn't, and the police shot her dead. Mr. Sheats and Christy's father were also at home at the time, but uninjured. Police say that the shooting stemmed from an ongoing family argument. Police reports showed that the deputies had been called out to the Sheats' home on numerous occasions previously, but the sheriffs claim that they don't know why. On Christy Sheats' Facebook page, she wrote all sorts of gun-loving screeds. In one of them she wrote, "It would be horribly tragic if my ability to protect myself or my family were to be taken away, but that's exactly what Democrats are determined to do by banning semi-automatic handguns." Christy Sheats was your typical gun zealot. Like most of her ilk, she never seemed to notice that well over 80% of all white murder victims are killed by other white people. People like Christy Sheats. Also, she never seemed to understand that the majority of Americans who die from firearms are killed by their own guns, whether it's suicide or murder-suicide, like Sheats. The same way most police officers die as the result of suicide, but you won't hear the Blue Lives Matter crowd tell you that either. And to those in the dominant society, they see guns as being a statement in and of themselves, having nothing to do with safety and everything to do with white supremacy. The white thugs who shot protesters at the Black Lives Matter rally in Minneapolis made videos of themselves bragging about the shooting long before they did it. But all they succeeded in doing was getting the precinct house that the protesters were demonstrating in front of closed. Poetic justice. And Dylan Roof, who had never been harmed by a black person in his life, saw guns as his way of bolstering his own clearly lacking manhood by shooting a church full of unarmed grandmothers. This is what the pro-gun lobby is about, a clumsy front for white supremacists. The two Sheats' daughters were caught in the crossfire of white-on-white crime, and perhaps if the police had done their jobs and made an arrest all those times that they went out to the Sheats' home, if somebody had perhaps mustered the courage to challenge the white privilege that was driving this woman to fixate on guns, this tragedy might well have been avoided. But white privilege makes it impossible to stop white-on-white crime, because that would depend upon the victims of white-on-white crime admitting that there's a problem and then acting to stop their own from killing their own. The white-on-white murder rate is actually just as bad, if not worse, than the black-on-black rate, but thanks to police who don't report it, DAs who don't prosecute, and a media who won't talk about it, we get a fraudulent racial narrative that the white community doesn't have this problem. Whites are more dispersed than the black community. Blacks live almost exclusively in the inner city, so whereas you always hear about a handful of gang shootings in South Chicago, it needs to be remembered that white people are killing one another in the inner city, in the county, and in the suburbs, like Christy Sheats did. Because gang shootings in the heart of the city will more easily garner media attention than the steady stream of dead bodies coming out of the suburbs, white-on-white crime is easy for the white media to cover up. Out of sight, out of mind. But as I keep telling the white supremacists, 2,500 dead white people is still more than 2,000 or so dead black ones. Perhaps these white supremacists will now go to Mr. Sheats and Christy's father and tell them about the black murder rate. And then they can tell them that guns are the only way that they can protect themselves from the violent blacks who are just waiting to kill them and rape their white women. And then the white supremacists can tell the Sheets family survivors that blacks commit all the murders in America. Then that they're more likely to be killed by a black man than a white person. That there's a white genocide being perpetrated by blacks and Jews. And finally, I would expect that the white supremacists will tell the Sheets family survivors that a gun is the only thing that will protect them from all of these murderous blacks who are just waiting to pounce upon them. All the lies the white supremacists have been telling which have never been challenged until now. And keeping a tally on the stories the white media refuses to tell gives us the picture that we knew was there all along. I don't have to debate with the white supremacists. All I have to do is tell the facts. My hope is that the white community will finally open their eyes, take responsibility for the self-inflicted genocide of white-on-white violence, before another white family slaughters itself in the streets.